So friends, good evening and welcome to all on behalf of My Retired Life Foundation. Welcome to Swami Chidananda amidst us. We are indeed grateful to have you, sir, with us. Today we are going to listen to Swamiji on a very important and crucial topic, particularly from a senior citizen's perspective, and that's the loneliness and how do we face the realm of loneliness. All of us feel lonely in some part of life, somewhere or the other. But as we grow older, possibly we might sometimes feel more lonely because of the various reasons, maybe physical reasons, maybe mental reasons, maybe psychological reasons. And therefore, this particular topic of loneliness and how to handle the loneliness is a very, very important thing. And therefore, it's a great occasion for all of us to listen to Swamiji on his views on this particular topic, that how do we handle loneliness from particularly an individual senior citizen's perspective. Thank you, Swamiji. We welcome you. And I request Dr. Vishwanathan to please introduce Swamiji, and then Swamiji, the floor is open to you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
first of all, let me thank Professor Sengupta for arranging this talk and for giving me the honor of introducing Swamiji. You have already had him speak in this forum, so I will be rather brief. So Swami Chidananda is a scholar of both ancient and modern spiritual wisdom. From the time he completed his formal education as a communications engineer, he devoted his life to the exploration of spiritual truth in all facets of life. Expositions of Ramana Maharshi, Krishnamurti, and Swami Chinmayananda, and also innumerable saints from ancient India made a deep impact on him. What is unique about Swamiji is that he has extensively worked in both formal as well as informal settings. And so he has dealt with innumerable issues very practically. With the flame of Who Am I? A name he has given to his Mumbai-based non-profit organization called FOWI, rendering valuable service to humanity. He wrote several books and gave numerous talks both within and outside India. For 16 years, he was part of Chinmaya Mission, founded by Swami Chinmayananda, who also gave him Diksha as Swamiji. And he taught Gita and Upanishads to various audiences. He was later associated with Krishnamurti Foundation of India in various capacities, and he continues to be so. So let us all welcome Swamiji for his talk on loneliness. Swamiji.
Thank you very much, Vishwanathan. And I too, from my part, my side, highly appreciate the initiative taken by Professor Sengupta. On the whole, I appreciate the goodwill that MRL Foundation, My Retired Life Foundation, and many members here from Study Life group, the goodwill between us really delights me. And together we are here this evening once more to apply our mind to a topic that is increasingly relevant. Loneliness can be killing. This morning, in fact, as I was taking my coffee, Times of India in Bangalore had a report that a couple in Kolkata died and they left behind a suicide note where they used the word, this is Ichha Mrityu. That means we have willingly, out of our own choice, ended our life. And their only daughter lives far away as a teacher in a school in 24 Paraganas South or something like that. They are in the city of Kolkata, and husband is 74, wife is 68. Can you believe a few hours before they ended their life, they had joined the birthday celebration of their 46-year-old daughter, and that daughter was accompanied by her 7-year-old child too. But after all that birthday celebration, the old couple go to their room and take a whole strip of sleeping tablets and leave behind a note. Today's Times of India, Bangalore edition, probably national edition. And it is understood to be a case of extreme suffering from loneliness. The case exacerbated by COVID-19, where any movement, meeting with people, etc., was made so difficult. So, as I shall be explaining more, around the world, this loneliness has become a very big problem, apparently more so in developed countries. And now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to take the reins on January 21. Already, President-elect Joe Biden has announced that he is appointing Dr. Vivek Murthy of Indian origin as the Surgeon General of United States. The position of Surgeon General basically is the head of all government hospitals, that is public health service. Now, Barack Obama had appointed the same young man, Vivek Murthy, in the same position. But when Trump came, he removed Dr. Murthy. So, what did Dr. Murthy do during the 4 years when he was not holding that high position? That is where it connects to this evening's topic. Dr. Murthy.
काय झालेलं आहे माझ्याकडे. चल थँक्यू. हो करून गेली. चल थँक्यू. गेला रे परत आवाज.
Thank you. Dr. Murthy, when he was freed of that very, very demanding position, focused fully on this issue of loneliness. He studied from the angle of view of physicians, he himself being a physician, and from other angles of view of lay people as well. And he found that loneliness in the United States had impacted so many aspects of life and therefore was causing tremendous damage to the entire population. We shall take a look at it in a short while. Therefore, poor or rich, living in UK, US, or India or Bangladesh, all of us have to face this issue of loneliness. And as was said rightly by Professor Sen Gupta, for seniors, I too am a senior, I am 63 now, or for all of us, majority here, the seniors, the issue of loneliness stares in our face. At this point, let me share a few simple slides and convey the points with a little bit of graphics also. So here we are going to take up the practical side of how to handle it. But before that, let us take full stock of the issue. Loneliness is a major problem, perhaps more so in developed countries, affecting elderly people and others too. It exacerbates mental illness, depression, etc. I am happy to present some thoughts before all of you, most of you being members of MRL Foundation and Study Life. This case, which came to my notice this morning only, sends us a strong message once more. COVID-19 made their loneliness multiply by several factors, And this couple, Pradyut Kumar Lahiri and Pranati Lahiri, in some street, in some address, there is James Long Sarani near Joka. Some of you may know Kolkata better than I do. I have visited a few times, but I do not know this area. So they found life to be losing meaning. Loneliness makes life look like having no meaning at all. Probably we always carry a sense of the self. I am that person's son. I am this person's wife. I am head of this institution. I am a treasurer in that organization. So we are so used to looking at ourselves as somebody, as something belonging somewhere. And then comes a phase of life where one by one all those identities fall by the roadside. And then, not out of intelligence or alertness, but in a depressive state of mind, we ask, who am I? What am I? I seem to have reduced to nothing. I have no reason to continue to live here, and so on. This is definitely a psychological problem, but it is so easy to say it's a psychological issue. But actually, when we are in the grip of it, it looks so real. It doesn't seem to be something made by thought. It seems to be an objective reality, like the heat in fire or the cold of a ball of ice, just as they are objective physical realities. It seems that loneliness is so real. Philosophers tell us we come alone, we go alone, in between we are more alone. Such poetry is sometimes written, which is enjoyable when we are not hit by loneliness. But when we ourselves are the victims in the clutches of loneliness, these statements add to our sorrow. But we would, in this lecture, highlight the fact, whether we recognize it or not, loneliness is actually a thought. It's a painful thought. It's a terrible feeling. And thought is like software. It can be debugged, it can be undone, it can be unwritten, or it can be removed from our consciousness. But how is the big question? So we say thought in turn is memories. Memories create a sense of the self and a sense of the others. And alas, in our ignorance, we take this memory created self, thought created self to be us. We are this self. We do not do self inquiry. So, others and us. And then begins all sorts of problems, such as thinking of ourselves as higher, superior, more accomplished, and we then get attached to that kind of I am good feeling. But when situations change, we begin to pay for it. There is a saying in English, those who kill by the sword also die by the sword. So when we are doing well in whatever context, if we think that we are as though a special creation by God, then there comes another time when we do not anymore enjoy that position or privilege, then we pay back. We feel so low. While if there were to be true intelligence, no matter what position we hold, how popular we are in the society out there, if there is intelligence operating and we do not get attached to those ideas of who we are and so on, when we are in high positions and later on when we do not occupy those chairs, internally it should not make much difference. Therefore, let me say well in advance, the antidote to thought, to memory, to what thinking creates is intelligence, is dispassionate, unbiased observation. Memories paint the picture of absence of company. For example, a singer who at one time drew large crowds, not less than 1,000 whenever he went to any big city, because of some changes in various situations, draws at some place only 50, 75 come to his recital, his performance. He, because of the memories of how he had huge audiences, now feels so miserable. The memories of how well received he was make him feel so low, but it is the mischief of memories. Memories, dear friends, need not rule over us, but by deciding to not get ruled by memories anymore, they do not stop. They may sometimes gather more strength. You fight with memories only to lend them more strength. So, memories build in the present context the image of I am now lonely, nobody wants me, or as some old Bollywood song of Raj Kapoor goes, even my shadow seems to want to leave me. Even my shadow is leaving me. Leave alone people. So we have enough of Bollywood, Collywood, Tollywood, and all those songs to add to our suffering. But where is the way out? So let's take a look again at the mischief of thought. Somebody looks at some roses and certain melancholy arises in him. He or she goes back down the memory lane. Many years ago, he gave me this kind of roses. Now he is not with me. Or she handed over this same kind of roses to me. Today, neither roses nor she is with me. So the question is, are the roses creating this problem, or the roses only trigger a certain memory and it is thoughts about the roses? Or it could be a river, it could be a certain dress, it could be a certain place. We go to a place and then that place triggers a memory. In 2012, my husband and I had come to this place. We spent some time, and that's enough. Then it goes. You cannot control it. So it's not the rose, it's not the river, it's not the dress, it's not the place, but it is thoughts about them that are the creators of the problem. So loneliness, on one hand, seems to again and again create scenarios of the past, recreate them. On the other, intelligently we must recognize the fact, as the last bullet goes here, it actually strengthens a certain picture of I, me, and my, and some evaluation, some label, some price tag is attached to that I. At one time I was so worthy, now I have become worthless. Who is saying this? Sometimes some people also may look down at you, but for that little of ill treatment that we may receive from A or B, actually the main culprit is our own mind. Even when somebody who used to promptly say, good morning, sir, and so on, now doesn't even look at us and doesn't smile at us, even that happens. Really speaking, if our mind does not support that scenario, our mind does not draw any conclusion, it looks at his behavior and smiles. This man used to do salam to me those days. Now, because I am not in that position or I am not so rich as before or whatever else, this fellow doesn't. What a joke. In this way, if we could take it. But that is where our conditionings come into picture. If that man was saying salam to us every morning in the good old days, that was not the issue. We got attached to it. We got used to it. We got habituated to seeing ourselves as the receiving end of salutes and namaskars and good mornings and everything. So, what is it that makes us so attached to a finite, limited, specific picture of who we are? In all the literature left behind by great mystics, it is pointed out that we actually are not to be fitted into any picture. No image, no nama rupa, that is an expression used in the Indian spiritual texts. No name and form actually apply to us, but we get attached to particular name and particular form. That is how loneliness is an extension of I, me, and my, and it further strengthens I, me, and my, by which I mean a description of who I am, who this me is, what things or what people are my people. So I, me, and my in a described manner. It is the description which is the culprit. Just a sense of I is harmless. But I was a king at one time. Today I am finding it difficult to make my two ends meet or something. So, described as a king, described as the most, so powerful person, whatever, that description. So, next time thought begins to describe who we are or who we were and who we will be, question that thought. The art of questioning our own thought, that is what we call self inquiry, is a tremendous tool in undoing the mischief of thought. I mentioned about Dr. Vivek Murthy. He is going to take up the position of Surgeon General. That means the head of all public health services across the country of United States. He worked for 3 to 4 years during Trump's presidency. Vivek Murthy was out of his main position. So he was born and raised in US, but his parents had gone from a small town between Bangalore and Mysore. That town is well known, Mandya. From Mandya, his parents had gone to US, and he grew up there, and he is a happy father, a happy husband of a Chinese wife. Like him, her parents must have come from China. She must have grown up in US. So he actually wrote this book, Together, that is titled as Together. And as the front cover shows, he was the 19th Surgeon General. Maybe in between there were 2 others. Now he is again going to be the 21st Surgeon General of USA. He calls loneliness a big problem, and when we are together, which doesn't require physically being together, but it is in our mind a certain intelligence. Even if we are far away in a desert, to feel one with all humanity, to feel with one with everybody. Physical distance doesn't matter. Suppose is the understanding of certain intelligence, then we are together. And that being together, the antidote of loneliness, he says, has the healing power. This human connection, once more, with or without being physically near, the healing power of human connection can go a long way in this world, which otherwise is a lonely world. He actually did quite a lot of research before writing this book, and he found out the value of loving, of caring, of feeling loved. Thus, it is, as we remarked before, a big problem even in rich countries. This slide just shows how some 10 years ago, Barack Obama had appointed. Dr. Murthy was in his 30s that time. Now I guess he is 45 or something. And now the then Vice President, now Vice President elect, now he is going to be President. Joe Biden is going to appoint him. Vivek Murthy will take charge again. And in his book, he says, loneliness leads to more alcohol consumption, more drug addiction. Loneliness can be at the root of violence, depression, anxiety. And the loneliness that parents or grandparents feel if they are in the same house can affect little children too. And needless to say, our performance on whatever level, at whatever phase of life comes down, it causes division. Because when the mind goes berserk, we cannot work together. Everywhere doubt and suspicion and sense of being cheated, sense of being betrayed, etc., can fill in our mind. Therefore, loneliness can cause division, polarization. And he has in his book, I am also yet to read it, I have read some pages, but it appears he has collected on one hand statistics, facts and figures, on the other sprinkled his medical knowledge to whatever he found out. Now, since I am, as was introduced to you by Sri Vishwanathan, I am a representative on one hand of the ancient texts like Gita, on the other, I am inspired by modern mystics or new age thinkers like J. Krishnamurti or others, Vimla Takar, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and Ramana Maharshi, and so on. Please permit me to share one or two slides on how a text like Gita talks about wisdom being connected with an understanding of being together. As the earlier slide said, if unwise people feel lonely, wise people, even if they are on a desert all alone, feel connected. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha is an expression in the Gita where it means the wise person could be in a cave or could be in some solitary place, but he or she feels always connected and he wishes for the well-being. So he's involved in serving all. Another verse says, the greatest yogi thinks of others' joys and sorrows as his own or her own. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. And Gita advises even those of us who inwardly may find certain peace, inwardly may not seek anymore any company. It advises such people not to become aloof, not to isolate themselves. The 3:25 and 26 in chapter 3 advises us we must mingle with people. Joshayet sarva karmani vidwan yuktaha samacharan. People might be attached to some name, some fame. If you and I, by God's grace, let us say, are no more chasing name and fame, we are no more, let us say, going after wealth and glitter and glamour. Gita says, even then, because you don't need name, fame, glitter, glamour, position, wealth, don't stand upon. Mix with people and you work or you interact as though you too are after wealth and fame, as though, not really, and move together, work together, join others in their work, and they may have their goals. You may not have those goals, but please, you also be as enthusiastic as they are. You may have a higher understanding, but don't go for inaction. Don't go for living in some kind of aloofness. That seems to be the powerful message in this ancient work. And in certain other places, there is a praise of not the lonely person, but there is another English word, someone who enjoys aloneness. Ekaki. In the context of talking about meditation, Gita says, Ekaki yatachittatma nirashi aparigraha, and so on. Someone who is no more dependent on company, is neither averse to company. In true aloneness, you neither depend on people being around you, nor are you averse to them. If they come, welcome. If they are not around, you are all right. So that is called the freedom from dependence on company. Not easy though. Same thing is expressed in a couple of other expressions. Vivikta desha sevitvam. Vivikta again is a place where no crowds. In fact, from the time COVID started, many cartoons, many humorous comments have come by, which have again and again said that a whole lot of you know, spiritual advice has become now has become so essential, necessary. Keeping distance, washing hands, or so much of other kinds of care. I'm sure everyone here knows how some of the old family customs uh, which were taken as religious practices, you see, have come back again in the name of being careful during COVID times. So Vivikta Desha Sevitvam and Aratihi Jana Sansadi. Jana Sansad again is crowd. So what was considered, my point earlier was spiritual or religious, somebody goes to a solitary spot and meditates, etc. Now during COVID times, everybody, because of concern for their health, keeps distance, sits separately, and even on aeroplanes you fly, and some of the flights, the middle seat is not occupied. Though other day when I came from North India to South, all the way the flights were 90% full. 3 seats, all full. Of course, they gave us a face shield also in addition to the mask. To be connected is what all of us want. That is normal. Let us not look down at the sentiments in us. If we wish our children were with us, if we wish our brothers, sisters were with us, if we miss our old classmates, nothing wrong. It is normal. But then, as we suffer more and more, we are going below normal if it becomes a big issue. That wish is understandable, but the wishing for company enslaves us, makes us miserable, then we are slipping down. That is where spiritual literature says to us, go above normal. We call it aloneness. So aloneness and loneliness look similar, but loneliness is miserable. Aloneness is when someone is able to empty her consciousness of all those, memories which enslave her. Therefore, either case, outwardly they may be similar. Inwardly, the person who enjoys aloneness is free of memories. Memories come up only when necessary. Memories do not rule the person. On the contrary, the person seems to be the master of his thoughts or her thoughts. I admit again and again, all this is nice poetry and good to say. In fact, some mystics like J. Krishnamurti have pointed out a number of times that a whole lot of so-called spiritual literature describes how somebody is master of the mind, and then they say description is not the described. You may have a very beautiful description of some Sthita Prajna, and you say, wow, this is how we have to be. I don't know when I will be like that, and so on. You have a picture of how you should be, and sometimes you feel sad that you are a long way to go, and so on. But in the whole process, you hardly pay attention to what you are, what you should be, written in prose and poetry by Indian or Western or any other mystics. Rumi from Sufis or somebody else from Zen Buddhism, some Vedantin, some Buddhist, some. So there are so many streams of wisdom in this world. All of them describe the state of being free of dependence and so on. You and I read that and we heave a long sigh. That's where I got to go, and I'm getting old now. I don't know how much time is left and so on. That is where people like Krishnamurti with a certain deep insight say to us, hold on, don't be carried away by just description. In fact, why do you need a description? Why do you need an ideal? Why do you need a picture of where you got to reach, what you have to become? Why do you need all that? Instead, you have loneliness. You are feeling low. You are feeling so sad or whatever. Don't even name it. Language is not such an issue. Whether you know the right word for it or not, who cares? But can you pay attention to what is going on in you? Take a look at thought. Take a look at your emotion. Not how you should be, but whatever there is. I once saw a comic strip. Somebody is reading a book on non-violence and his face is beaming with happiness. What a great book. Non-violence. How nice it is to live a non-violent life. Something he is reading. That is when a mosquito comes near, the second frame of the comic strip. He looks at the mosquito and gets irritated. And in the third or fourth frame of that comic strip, the humor is this guy reading a wonderful book on non-violence kills that mosquito with that very book. He turns violent. So he is enjoying wonderful descriptions of living in non-violence, but he did not notice how a wave of violence was rising right within himself at that time. Therefore, though I also gave you some descriptions, let me hasten to add the descriptions cannot take us far. Maybe a little of it is just for our awareness, but the real work is being able to notice what we are, what is going on actually in us, and not what we hope to become, what we plan to become, and so on. In that context, before I go to the serious, profound teachings of those mystics, I must do justice to the topic by acknowledging that normally a whole lot of people, including you and me, try to beat this loneliness, try to overcome this loneliness by some of these normal, popular solutions. We have a hobby. There was a lady when years ago I was living in Bangalore in the premises of a Sri Krishna temple. She would come and spend hours and hours doing some voluntary work. And on one hand, everybody appreciated the work she was doing. But then slowly we understood that she just can't bear staying alone in her house. So there was some kind of helplessness and some kind of great dependence on the temple, on the ashram, on the spiritual place. That dependence is a bit scary. For some reason, let us say the management of the temple or some swamis also sometimes, suddenly may ask so-called devotee, don't come from tomorrow to this place. We have other volunteers now. Don't come and disturb, something like that. That lady would be devastated. In her case, I was in touch with her for a long time. It did not happen, thank God. But many a time, friends, I have seen other cases. Somebody gives so much time, energy, even they write off, some part of their property, etc., to some ashram, and then the ashram management changes or the Swamiji's mood changes, Swamiji or bishop or mullah or anybody, and this person who gave away so much to that religious place is simply shown the door because the new management doesn't appreciate. You might have given some big donation, you might have spent thousands of hours here doing voluntary work, but now goodbye to you. The world can be cruel. And imagine if this man, if this lady had become so emotionally dependent on the place, on some gurus or mullahs or cardinals or bishops or fathers or whoever, doesn't matter. Dependence, psychological dependence can become dangerous. If things go slightly wrong, you will be so miserable. However, people, in order to get a quick fix, to get temporary relief, bank on hobbies. They depend on some engagements so that their mind is taken away from those crippling memories, from those memories which sadden us. We want to run away. Therefore, in more strict language, all these engagements which seem to help us overcome loneliness are called escapes. This is not to condemn or find fault with anybody, but this is to awaken people to a realistic assessment. So when you and I, all of us are into a little of some of these ways, when you and I get into some ways of feeling better, all right, we don't have to stop suddenly, but it is good for us to understand why am I listening to so much music? Why do I read? Why do I sit before television for hours and hours? Or these days, why am I checking email 7 times a day? Why am I going and browsing all those sites? Why do I hop from one song to another on YouTube, from one speech to another, or one news coverage? Why do I take so much interest about the conflict in the Gulf country? Why did I spend that day 25 minutes learning about Qatar? How Qatar, the Gulf country, was isolated all these days, but now suddenly Saudi Arabia and others have welcomed Qatar and we become friends again. Did I watch that whole video by Shekhar Gupta, who is a wonderful journalist, out of genuine interest in international issues? Or was it an escape for me from my own loneliness? Do I hate myself and do I feel better when I look at the fight between two countries or two political parties or two communities? I'll read about it and say, see, they are again fighting. So is it because I want to somehow get away from my problems that I go on thinking about their problems? We must look at it. We must look at it. And if it is an escape for me from my own troubles, then friends, it is obvious that that kind of escape will not stand by me for long. Therefore, we need to slowly rise above these quick fixes. We need to gather some energy to face ourselves as we are. So with due respect to all these hobbies, these engagements, and all those goody advice, joy shared is joy doubled, and sorrow shared is sorrow halved. True. But then nothing like going to the root cause of our inner turmoil. So Some hobbies have been shown here: sports and games and exercise and knitting and reading, having a pet. Many people, have a pet and showing love to the pet. Please bear with me. I'm not condemning anything. I'm only asking you and me, I'm asking myself also to understand it better. You have your hobbies, somebody has his or her hobbies, and I, the speaker today, have my own hobbies, my own attachments. In fact, watching a 25 minutes video on the country called Qatar, where the Doha, that country, was what I did the other day one evening. I had a lot of work. I put aside all work and went on watching this Qatar story. So it was a mixture of some interest in various affairs of the world, but some kind of escape from some file that I had to go through. Who wants to do it? Let me see why Qatar was isolated by other countries and why they have welcomed back and so on. So, to what extent we escape or run away from some duty, and to what extent we actually relate to whatever we are doing. In the former case, it is an escape. In the latter case, if we really relate, if we really are concerned with humanity, therefore we want to know what's going on in Nepal, what's going on to the Uyghur Muslims in China, what's going on in the heads of those people who stormed the Capitol, the US Capitol in Washington, D.C. What was their state of mind? Suppose you are truly a seeker of understanding, that's fine. But if it's an escape, then you are in for trouble. Therefore, I would like to mention even religions provide some kind of via media. They talk of bhakti yoga, make God your companion. There's a story of some Kanakadasa who always thought of Sri Krishna being by his side. So when the Guru gave a banana to all the students, eat it when nobody is watching you, Kanakadasa came back without eating the banana. And then in front of all other students, Kanakadasa said, wherever I went, I could not eat it without anybody watching me because I felt Sri Krishna was watching me. In Bhakti Yoga, you don't feel lonely. You have God as your companion, and that seems to work for some people. In Karma Yoga, you serve people. In Raja Yoga, you go for certain yoga, asana, pranayama, and so on, psychophysical control. But in this lecture, we wish to take a deeper look at Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the way of intelligence. Though it begins with reading books and scriptures and a lot of conceptual stuff, a lot of conceptual material may come in the beginning, I do agree. But if we are doing it rightly, if we are fortunate to get certain good opportunity to exchange thought, what we call even dialogues. A true dialogue is where X is not instructing Y nor Y is instructing X, but X and Y, A and B, P and Q, all are learning from each other. So very soon, rather than being a bookish affair, this is Jnana Yoga takes the form of learning from everything, learning from each other, and examining the nature of how we live, what we do, and so on. Examining the way thought operates. That is Jnana Yoga. In that context, towards the end of my presentation, I wish to say that mystics and very, very illumined people like J. Krishnamurti and Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta, whose picture is not here, they talked on coming upon a solution at the level of the root cause. Krishnamurti often warned us Don't be content with just moving from a small prison to a larger prison. From a prison where there are no facilities to another prison where good facilities and time to time good food is served and so on. This is my further elaboration. He talked of walls, you know, a larger prison where the walls are wider, more spaced. He said, break the walls, get out of the prison. That is a tall order for a lot of people. So the hobbies and some activity, so-called religious activity, many times gives to us a sense of now I am better. I don't feel as lonely as before. This is okay, I think, etc. The thinker or the visionary, or it's difficult to describe him. Sri J. Krishnamurti can't call him even a philosopher. He himself didn't like to be called a philosopher, as many of you know. He said, break the walls of the prison. In one of his books, which is shown here, The Flight of the Eagle, he talks about how when the eagle flies, it doesn't leave behind any footprints. No footprints or no wing prints are left on the air as an eagle flies. But you and I, as we move through scenarios and situations, victory or defeat and so on, we allow some residue to remain in our mind. If we have won somewhere, if we have been praised and honored somewhere, those pleasant memories remain, and we seek repetition of that enjoyment. And somewhere else, if we were hurt, insulted, if we were criticized, that also leaves behind a residue. So is it possible for us to move from day to day, from situation to situation, without psychological residues? He asked. So fly like the eagle, where no footprints are left behind. Likewise, he cautioned us. You and I typically look at our bank balance as a source of security. Our having a good connection with some well-placed people in the society. I am in the good books of all these well-placed, rich or whatever. So we feel security. But everything is constantly changing. Was it not in Bombay? I had a long time friend, and he was feeling so good that he knew a couple of very rich people in his neighborhood. They often called him for tea, or he called and they came to his house. So he felt, I am now in a big league. But then he got the shock of his life when, after some years of this kind of building a friendship, there was a wedding in the house of one of those rich people. And nowadays, what happens is, even if the parents sometimes want to invite the whole town, the son or daughter who is getting married, objects. Nowadays, young people are prone to say, "This is our wedding. Don't call all your old friends. Show us the list. We will edit the list." So some such thing happened right in the Malabar Hill area, and then this friend of mine was shattered because he presumed, he took for granted that he would be invited to that wedding in the rich man's house. He was not, and he felt so shattered. So, what these mystics say is not false. If we think that these rich contacts, those big academicians, these politicians, I am in their good books and I'm okay. Nothing remains the same, everything may change. Therefore, there is a very thought-provoking statement. When seeking security in anything of the world ceases, then you may come upon security. When you do not anymore seek security in people or in knowledge, reading a lot of books. Speakers like me go on reading books so that we can give lectures. Neither giving lectures nor reading those books, or even if I write some 20 books tomorrow, which sell well also, none of them guarantees to me as I get older and older true peace of mind. All those books, all those lectures, all that, whatever, it has some place, that's about it, doesn't it? Whereas if there is a certain intelligence which does not seek security from these things, people sing, people speak, people invest, people do business, whatever. All of us are active in so many ways. If they are a sideshow, in our heart, we do not depend on them for our self-worth. Our self-worth does not depend on the books written or lectures given or songs sung or whatever. So self-worth should be freed from all these things. Then it seems it's quite a mystical statement. When you don't cling, when you don't hold on to anything, then you come upon true security. And Maharshi Ramana, quoting him, I pause, he said, ask yourself, who am I? When I feel lonely and my mind says, oh my God, I'm feeling so lonely, Maharshi would say, who is feeling lonely? I. Who am I? In other words, there is this I which is psychologically created, which is the product of memories. So let us look at it, let us examine it, and probably, who knows, the self, the I, which was feeling very lonely, gets exposed. It could be a wrong software, it could be a program with many bugs, and this asking, who am I, watching that movement of that little I, perhaps removes those bugs, we don't know. But these people, these mystics, they say to us, question your sense of being lonely. Don't take it as a hard truth. Then see what happens. Thank you, friends, for your patient hearing. Let me stop here and I shall gladly try to answer any questions if there are. Namaste.
Namaste, Swamiji. Can I start? Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, yeah.
Swamiji, I have a small question that how do I make my journey from loneliness to aloneness?
Yes. I'm just, okay, let me go to, who is asking the question?
This is Sengupta here.
Oh, yes, now I came to the gallery view. Oh, thank you. Yes. So, interestingly, the journey from loneliness to aloneness is no different from the journey from thought to simple awareness. So there is a state of being in every one of us where we are completely controlled by thoughts. Thoughts, as analogies go, thoughts create a smoke screen. These are analogies, forgive me for bringing those analogies. Thoughts create some images. Thoughts create a shadow play. Just like a projector creates those scenes on the cinema screen. And when we are watching the cinema screen, Raj Kapoor and Nargis singing a song, we become quite emotional also. We appreciate the hero's facial expressions. We thoroughly enjoy the heroine's facial expressions. But that show keeps going, first show, second show, and so on. So, enough of that analogy. The journey from loneliness to aloneness is a journey from being immersed or being caught in the images that memories and thoughts create to a state of being where they are absent. It is proposed that when we are alert, when we are watchful, first of all, a whole lot of memories do not rise at all because they are not relevant. Secondly, even if some memories rise, we don't have to really declare a war against the mind. Let them arise. Let memories, let some thoughts arise. But the good news is, if we learn the art of quiet watching, why do I add the adjective quiet? Quiet means without judging. So you have a visitor and he has something to say. Suppose you listen to him quietly. What it means is you don't jump to a conclusion. You give him space to pour out. Though it seems in the beginning, it may seem to you that this person is a rightist or a leftist, or you say, no, I don't want to label him as a right wing or left wing or anything. Let me listen to him carefully without jumping to a conclusion. Like that, if we can watch the thoughts rising in us without jumping to any conclusion or judgment, that is the way of handling memories which have anyhow risen. So, in watchfulness, thoughts that would have arisen would not arise. Then, some thoughts which anyhow would arise also are handled much better. We don't indulge in them, we don't get carried away by them. So, let me conclude my summary answer. The going from loneliness to aloneness is a matter of going from the state of mind where we are hijacked by thoughts to a state of mind, call it state of being, where we gently find some space between thoughts and ourselves. Then the thoughts subside also.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Welcome. Thank you. It's a very wonderful question. You opening batsman hit a sixer, I tell you.
Well, Swami, I have a simple, small question, a doubt. Many times the
Oh, yes.
mind gets agitated when we are surrounded by our own known people and all that, not
Yeah.
expecting anything, but still they start, the moment you raise to help someone, they say, don't do it, you sit there. So they start misbehaving because it's a preconceived in their brain that in the past this person was doing so and so action. But irrespective of that, the person goes silently and is quite perturbed. Is it the negative impact of that environment or their, the whole collective people negatively, they disturb us so much that the pure thoughtful person gets disturbed and starts reacting in a negative way, in a reactive way? You know what I mean? And everybody says he's crazy, maybe he's angry always. And I feel sorry because when I sit alone for 12 hours, I have no problem, because whether things happen or not, let go. And I'm not even bothered, even though I'm not well at that moment, but still I keep myself positive by sometimes doing small handiwork, sometimes reading to the newspaper. Then I say, no, this is not the time for what is my priority is be myself with my guru or whatever time. And more than that, be with the nature. And thanks and with the gratitude for all my elders. So I don't know whether I'm on the right track, because some people, suddenly because of my little situations, loneliness, I have utilized it by calling to other alone people just to say, hi, how are you? I'm okay. And after a few weeks, when I'm not answering or questioning, they are wondering why he's not on the screen, why he's not calling. And then we are reconnecting. And what you said very truly, it is 100% true that we should always give some free space for the youngsters and the old, but the youngsters are very reactive. So we have to protect our emotional strength. That's all.
Thank you.
Swamiji, can I ask one question?
Oh,
N.K. Agarwal?
Yeah.
Sir, here the distances between
Hello?
the particles is increasing because
Can I ask one question, Swamiji?
I think
Both sides of the string,
somebody else is
distance
speaking.
between
That-
two parts of the wire.
Everyone knows, and even we also know that ego
Yeah.
is bad. How do
Okay,
we
so,
come out of this ego? How
Let
do we
me
come out of
request
this ego?
Mr. Agarwal to speak, and somebody else speaking should please.
No, nobody else is speaking. I don't know how the sound is coming, Swamiji, but
Right, nobody else is speaking. Yeah, but sound is coming. Now it stopped. Yes, Mr. Agarwal.
N.K. Agarwal here, can I talk?
Yeah, now
yeah,
you.
please go ahead.
Everyone knows, including me, that ego is bad.
Yeah.
We should all get rid of it. How do I do it? Because the more we try, the more we get into it.
Hmm. You see, ego is extremely difficult to handle, but life teaches us lessons, and such events where there are some talks, some dialogues, etc., open up. It's like untying a knot. We'll have to very carefully see where the threads are going. Therefore, rather than a mere decision, which is called will, exercise of will, somebody takes a new year resolution. This year I am going to be free of ego. It won't work. Whereas the intention is good, you need to, um, number one, understand the working of the ego. Number two, in small measures, mingle with people. Small measures, somebody is nasty, out of greater awareness, you reduce your reaction, and if necessary, keep a distance from that person who may irritate you again and again. At least take some decisions about not going for some kind of gross decisions. Like other day, a friend of mine said he's so agitated and he wanted to write an email without his name, somebody fake name, and he wanted to send it to some 20 people, maligning this man who had irritated him. So I said to him, that won't work. Either have the guts to write the email in your own name, let the whole town know who wrote the email, or don't write at all. Don't send an email in somebody else's name. It will boomerang on you. Whether the town finds out or not, the very fact that you wrote an email, in somebody else's name will keep biting you for rest of your life. So for heaven's sake, don't do such cowardly things. So you and I, in our own ways, we might not be doing that kind of act, but some other way we might be reacting and it hurts us. So we need to learn to, to refine our verbal behavior and our physical behavior, because they say, right, thought, word, and deed. So it's an ongoing process. In traditional wisdom, we are given so much of advice: speak the truth, don't tell lie, and so on, concrete. Whereas in certain higher wisdom, we are asked to live more and more in self-observation. There's no contradiction between the two. This is a higher language. In self-observation, in being watchful of the way we talked, and even better is being watchful of how we talk at the time of talking, certain changes, healthy changes take place as part of that watching. Therefore, use the higher language of living in awareness, or the popular language of refining thought, word, and deed, kayena vacha manasa. That is how it opens up unknown, unseen aspects of the ego. When the unseen aspects of the ego become seen, that is it. Then it starts tapering off. Like the example is given, you get a bad smell in a room and you wonder where that bad smell is coming. Then you found, let us say, a dead lizard or a little dead mouse. Once you find it, nobody needs to tell you that please remove it. You will, of course, remove it. Similarly, all of us have some peculiar attachments, sometimes from childhood onwards. Maybe our parents told us that we are a better family than anybody else. It sticks with us even when we cross 60 or 70. What parents had injected into us when we were 5 or 10-year old. But this is the way. Be aware and continuously work on mana, vak, and karma, thought, word, and deed. All it does, it opens up the facets of the ego. Moment you see the dead rat, there will be no delay between seeing it and throwing it away.
Pranam Swamiji.
Ah.
Myself R.K. Modi.
Yes, Mr. Modi.
I want to know, see, thoughts coming in mind, uh, as I know, it is something like 20 thoughts per minute, something like that. And out of that, 80% or 85% is useless. I may not say that I am correct, but balanced thoughts, in that most of the thoughts are negative and very small percentage of thoughts are positive. So by conquering this negative thoughts and converting into positive thoughts by any means, maybe meditation or maybe, um, is it a from loneliness to aloneness?
It will help to some extent. What you said, if I understood right, is substituting
Yeah,
positive thoughts in place of negative
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, yeah.
It will give some temporary relief. Therefore, the exercise of will does give some temporary benefit. Like, it is said that there was a husband um, who every evening when he came, as he entered the house, somehow or the other there would be some argument with wife or children, grown-up children. So he decided, there was one popular article was there. Uh, he decides to do something about it. What he does is when he drives home, he drives his own car. He stops the car in front of the house where he parks it and deliberately does not go in for full 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, he says to himself, now as I go inside, my wife may pick up something, my son may say something, my daughter may say, no matter what they say, this evening, I am not going to get angry, he decides. And he writes in that popular article that it helped him a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do not contradict him, but we only say this, that this kind of deciding for in 5 minutes, you give an auto suggestion to yourself.
Correct.
Sometimes they call it biofeedback, or big words are used. You say to yourself, come what may, next 1 hour I am not going to argue with anybody. Even if my son says, today the sun rose in the west, I will say, how wonderful, and I'll just keep quiet. In this way, this kind of self instruction will not solve the problem at the root cause, because the subconscious, the hidden memories of some behavior on the part of the son or the daughter or the wife, etc., would have collected in our bosom. Another day, it just breaks loose, hell breaks loose.
Correct.
Therefore, what you say is a noble thoughts, etc. We don't completely dismiss them. Noble thoughts are always welcome, but earlier the better. We must tackle the problem on deeper levels, which is self-understanding. Or let me make it, instead of being too philosophical, let me say, for every 1 pound of these so-called noble thoughts, please do spend 1 pound, meaning some amount of time or whatever, in quietly, sitting quietly, maybe watching some natural scene. So go, if there is a lake near your house, a river, a water body, go and sit there even for 10 minutes and just see. And that time the mind would be impatient. The mind would say, you are wasting this time here because somebody said, meanwhile you could have cleared that work, this work. So let the mind create all its noise. But you just watch. At least you come to know how restless your mind is.
Yeah, correct.
You
That
may
is true.
lovingly say to your mind at that time, oh dear mind, you don't let me sit 5 minutes, 10 minutes also peacefully. You say, go clear this job, go do that job. Everything I will do, but 10 minutes, leave me alone. In this way, you build a different relation with your mind. To bring our mind to cooperate with watching becomes difficult if we are not habitual. Therefore, on one hand, you have the noble thoughts, substitution. On the other, nothing noble, no ideal, no description. Just you notice whatever is without adding fuel to the fire. So that would take you deeper, because then you will clearly understand how you are made, how your tendencies are.
Thank you, Swamiji.
No, most welcome. But if I may add one thing, sometimes when we sit quietly, actually there is a shift. Rather than wondering what I should do now, what I should do now, that's a obsession with us. In sitting quietly, we suddenly understand that the other person was right in some ways. There's a shift. One area of obsession is what I should tell her, what I should tell him, what I will do tomorrow. Another is there some truth in what they said? Then a healthy approach can be taken up. Suppose the other party was right. It pains us sometimes to discover that the other party who criticized us were right. But that pain is worth going through. Amidst all that pain, we won't lose really. We will be able to work out something more meaningful, some healthy way of approaching the matter.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
We'll take one more question, please, if anybody has.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Vish, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So you mentioned about, this is Vishwanathan, you mentioned about connecting to people, other people as normal.
Yeah.
And the difficulty here is that generally society, you didn't distinguish between who the good and bad, etc. So the society as a whole is corrupt. And basically what happens is, to be rid of this loneliness problem, when you connect with people, you're becoming part and parcel of this rather corrupt world. Obviously we are stuck in it. And as Gupta mentioned, the transition from loneliness to aloneness will not take place because you're stuck with, all this. You're stuck with all this. So, I just would like you to explore what actually it means to connect with people, but without getting stuck in anything.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it's quite difficult, but if I may attempt answering it, it's something like once we realize that connecting to these people would almost be amount to joining their group, joining their ethos, joining their value system, and so on, we will have to, go about it more carefully. So connecting with them should be only on the level of universal values, not beyond that. What is a universal value? To say good morning to a neighbor, or when he asks me what is the time, I look at it and say it is 6:22. This is all, basic friendliness, basic goodwill, and some small things, just some human qualities. We should stop there only. Whereas generally the mistake we make, I think, because there is always some insecurity in us, no matter how much well settled, quote unquote, we are, there's always some insecurity. And when we find some powerful person, some wealthy person, some famous person, there's a tendency in the human mind to tap from that, a little fame, if not what you call that glory, at least let me have some reflected glory. So I meet a celebrity and I stand next to him and take a selfie. Then I wonder, shall I put it on WhatsApp or on Facebook or Instagram, right? So we should not do those things. I think we should intelligently withdraw from trying to tap from somebody's position, fame, name, etc. But connect with them just as two human beings. Not easy, again and again I would admit, but that makes the difference. And that again requires tremendous attention to thought, because necessarily there is a thought arising. I think this is a very rich man. I must come more and more to him. And if I get invited more and more to tea at his place, it will be nice, isn't it? Thought will be operating. And we need to, like a policeman keeping an eye on a thief, we need to watch that thought. The whole tendency to always tie with famous and rich is not left me. That way one must watch. Then we can distinguish. I will just be friendly with him as another human being, as a neighbor, but I don't want anything beyond that. It comes naturally from within us.